Pericles' funeral oration is one of the first examples of great oration in the so-called Western world, coming as in the well, it comes as a chapter in the second book of Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War, where he has recounted a somewhat brutal first year of the war, and at the end of that year, Athens is commemorating a cemetery to the war dead, to all the soldiers who have died in the war leading up to that point, and it is a time of some reckoning. The context is really very important. The Athenians had every right to expect that, well, they were in charge necessarily of the war and or of Greece writ large, and it was only some malcontents in Sparta who were acting up, and we'll put that down. That'll be fine. But of course, Sparta and its allies fight back quite effectively. And the war at the end of that first year is not going very well for Athens. The comfortable supremacy of the Athenians is shaken. Pericles is called to deliver this collective eulogy, if you will, for those who have died. And he uses that occasion, knowing full well that, well, he needs popular support for this war, and the reality is starting to set in that it's going to be a long, hard slog. So he uses the occasion to speak to the people in a very personal way, and he uses it to make a case for staying in the war, and make a case for the special role Athens has in Greece at that time. The speech begins with a proemium, or a introduction, that strikes a very reasonable and ordinary ambition. This pro forma public speech. I'm just here to dedicate this cemetery. You know, in the same winter, the Athenians gave a funeral to the public cost to those who had first fallen in this war. It was a custom of their ancestors, and the manner of it is as follows. 3 days before the ceremony, the bones of the dead are laid out in the tent which have been erected, and their friends bring to their relatives such offerings as they please. In the funeral procession, cypress coffins are borne in cars, one for each tribe, the bones of the deceased being placed in the coffin of their tribe. Among these is carried one simple bier decked for the missing, that is, for those whose bodies could not be recovered. Which is a beautiful little historical document telling us about the funeral rites here and the concerns of the leadership to honor these people, but also the very simple ceremonial, in the most quotidian understanding of that word, simple ceremonial function of this event. When the proper time arrived, he advanced to the sepulchre as elevated in order to be heard by as many of his crowd as possible, and spoke as follows, is the introduction of Pericles. It's all laying out just a simple, this is going to be a speech. And then Pericles takes the stand and says, in a kind of faux humility, that he is, somewhat not quite equal to the task in trying to live up to the example of the city's heroic dead. Most of my predecessors in this place have commended him who made this speech part of the law, telling us that it was well that it should be delivered at the burial of those who fell in battle. For myself, I should have thought that the worth which had been displayed itself in deeds would be sufficiently rewarded by honors also shown by deeds. Here he's saying that, okay, the soldiers, they're their honor is manifest, irrespective of what I can say about it. It's a kind of humility before the examples. And he goes on to talk about his great predecessors again. However, since our ancestors have stamped this custom with their approval, it becomes my duty to obey the law and to try and satisfy your several wishes and opinions as best I may. So he's saying that, okay, I am just a subject within the greater body of Athens. I am subject to the law as well. So he is just a servant, essentially, of the ancestors, who were themselves servants of Athens as a polis, as a city. And so you can see how he is positioning himself not above anyone, but within the greater system of Athenian democracy. The speech then proceeds to celebrate not the recently dead necessarily, or even the still living who are listening, but rather, it shifts the focus to the city's heroic ancestors. An example all can feel some emotional stake in while still basking in their hero worship. It says, I shall begin with our ancestors. It is both just and proper that they should have the honor of the first mention on an occasion like the present. So again, heralding a common, as in shared and united, emblem of dignity to rally around. And he makes it seem like, well, we're all just, struggling along to live up to their example. And then he passes even further into abstraction. The focus shifts from the people to the form of government and its civic ideals themselves, from the people to the polis. Our Constitution does not copy the laws of neighboring states. We are rather a pattern to others than imitators ourselves. Great civic pride in how they have a unique form of government. And this is, again, bringing everybody into the ticket. And we're no longer at this point celebrating the dead in the ground or the battles that they fell in, but rather the entire city and civilization that they have all created and are still in the practice of creating. The culture of the city even comes in for its share of glory, highlighting that which probably most distinguishes Athens at its height from the more regimented society of Sparta, which was so militaristic and narrow in its scope. And in doing this, the purported focus of the war dead, that just slips even further from the spotlight. Further, we can provide plenty of means for the mind to refresh itself from business. We celebrate games and sacrifices all the year round, and the elegance of our private establishment forms a daily source of pleasure and helps to banish the spleen. Pleasure. An unusual note to strike. Defending the pursuit of happiness, if you will, in a eulogy. And they're setting up this contrast because the obvious contrast is with Sparta, which has a very constricted society. This is an open society. Spartan narrowness, Spartan regimentation is the boogeyman in that, and is the clear contrast. And thus, the speech makes an argument for the war itself, based on this preference, this political, governmental distinction. If we turn to our military policy, there also we differ from our antagonists. We throw open our city to the world and never by alien acts exclude foreigners from any opportunity of learning or observing, although the eyes of an enemy may occasionally profit by our liberality. Wow. If only we had these reminders more frequently ourselves. The celebration of Athens is often running at this part. And here, the whole notion of the war dead that's essentially gone at this point. So you get these soaring passages of of rhetoric heralding the greatness of Athens, and also by implication justifying their own imperial ambitions. They are the big dog in Greece, and they have been lording it over everyone and building this resentment. So here the speech does, justify its sense of sovereignty over the other city-states. In short, I say that as a city, we are the school of Hellas, which is Greece, while I doubt if the world can produce a man who, where he has only himself to depend upon, is equal to so many emergencies and graced by so happy a versatility as the Athenian. Meaning, we are in charge because we are the best. Again, that emphasis on we. You see that emphasis on the collective, drawing the audience in to celebrate Athens and celebrate what they are fighting for. The speech then bends back from the celebration of Athens as an ideal to the embodiment of that ideal in the fallen dead. It's not going to let the speech get too far away from that topic. Indeed, if I have dwelt at some length upon the character of our country, it has been to show that our stake in the struggle, the war, is not the same as theirs who have no such blessings to lose, and also that the panegyric of the men over whom I am now speaking might be by definite proofs established. Using the war dead as evidence for the commitment and a foundation on which to build pride in their sacrifice, pride in the collective action that the war is demanding, and that we should use them, and all of the audience should explicitly take inspiration from them. By doing so, the speech essentially conscripts the audience into the moral cause of the war. It drafts them into feeling that, okay, we are all the same. The people in the graves are just the same as the people standing right here in front of me, and we are all tied together in this great struggle. So died these men as became Athenians. You, their survivors, must determine to have as unfaltering a resolution in the field, though you may pray that it may have a happier issue. Before trying to scare them off too much, he wants to make sure that, well, okay, it could end up better for you than it did for them. But again, trying to stress the unity of it. But also provide a kind of aspirational aspect to it. You too can share in, while not necessarily the death, but the honor and glory of everything. Comfort, therefore, not condolence, is what I have to offer as to the parents of their dead who may be here. Numberless are the chances to which, as they know, the life of man is subject, but fortunate indeed are they who draw for their lot a death so glorious as that which has caused your mourning. Which is straight out of Shakespeare, quite frankly. Shakespeare is going to borrow this notion of the happy few who get to share in the glory. Better to have died here afield than warm in bed many years hence, or something like that, which is Shakespeare's speech for Henry V before the Great Battle of Agincourt. The idea that we can all have a sense of pride and recommitment to the task before us if we follow the example of these poor fallen. And he extends a challenge to the audience. Turning to the sons and brothers of the dead, I see an arduous struggle before you. He's not afraid to get real. When a man is gone, all are wont to praise him, and should your merit be ever so transparent, you will still find it difficult to not merely to overtake, but even to approach their renown. The living have envy to contend with, while those who are no longer in our path are honored with a goodwill, even which rivalry does not enter, into which rivalry does not enter. On the other hand, if I must say anything on the subject of female excellence to those of you who will now be in widowhood, it will be all comprised in this brief exhortation. Great will be your glory in not falling short of your natural character, and greatest will be hers who is least talked of among men, whether for good or bad. And then he closes on a note of humility. And this accentuates, again, the enormity of the task of speaking that he has just completed, and allows the experience of the glory of to respectfully rival that of the war dead. That in surviving the transformative aura of this occasion, not just the speech, but the commemoration of the cemetery itself, that it is all something that we can share in. My task is now finished. I have performed it to the best of my ability, and in word, at least, the requirements of the law are now satisfied, which is very, again, faux humility. He's delivered quite a blockbuster speech here, but by saying again that, well, I'm just one man and I'm doing my best, he allows other people to come in and say, no, you did a good job, and thus raise them up just a little bit to a common level where they can all feel the decency and the glory of what it means to be an Athenian. If deeds be in question, those who are here interred have received part of their honors already, and for the rest their children will be brought up till manhood at the public expense. The state thus offers a valuable prize as a garland of victory to this race of valor, for the reward both of those who have fallen and their survivors. And where the rewards for merit are greatest, there are found the best citizens. So he ends on citizens. He ends with that title, that distinction that they all share. And he has moved them from a point of great fear and uncertainty at the beginning to a kind of resolve and confidence in their shared ability, their united ability to move forward into an uncertain future, but one where they will all share in the glory of being Athenians. As a speech, it accomplishes an astonishing arc of development.